All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have founder and CEO of Micro One on the call today, Ali Ansari, as well as strategic AI lead Soliman Anis, who runs our data partnerships program. And so, over the next 30 minutes, we really wanted to dedicate a specific time to teach everyone about Micro One's data partnerships program and how the workflows that your company already runs every day can become a revenue stream for you, typically worth anywhere between $100,000 upwards of 2 million. So this is a really great opportunity that we have, and we're recruiting a small cohort over the next 2 weeks. So we really wanted to get as much information out to you as possible. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. I think the best place to start here is by talking a little bit more about who Micro One is, why we're here, and why we're launching this program now. Ali, if you want to take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Sydney, and thanks everybody for joining. So, yeah, quick high level Micro One is we are a data lab. We're a data research company that helps foundational model companies improve their capabilities. So, we help all the top labs with frontier data sets as well as RL environments to help them improve on many different domains like finance, medical, legal, coding, and a bunch more. We also work with enterprises and we help enterprises evaluate and improve their agents through what we call contextual evaluations, which are evals that are very specific to any enterprise workflow that results in agent kind of monitoring and improvement. So that's kind of the high level. And for both of these data products, there's sort of like two really important, I would say, qualities of data that we always look for. The first is what we call long horizon tasks, which is a little bit less relevant for this call, but I think it's important to kind of describe both of these qualities together. The long horizon tasks means essentially very complex tasks that match kind of what experts do on their actual job that represent valuable artifacts or outputs that end up getting generated, which then gets distilled into models to train them. So that's sort of like the first quality. The second is what we call real worldness or realism, which is how real world is each data point being created. And so every time we have experts that are creating tasks and data points to sort of help improve model capabilities, we ask them to create prompts that really are realistic, that match what they would do on their day job, that are tasks that they would perhaps get delegated from their boss and so forth. And this kind of real worldness dimension, let's call it, really allows for models to match the distribution on what they're going to actually be used for when they're in production within companies and so forth, which is what results in uh, more efficient model improvements. So this second dimension is what we're really kind of focused on scaling, quote unquote, and like really doubling down on, which is how can we make data points even more real world. And so that's why we've started this program called the Company Data Partnerships, where we're partnering with companies that we're working with to essentially anonymize the data sets that they have, whether it's a corpus of data for company or having companies kind of submit trajectories using certain AI tools that results in data points that improve model capabilities. And the way to think about it is the sort of real worldness dimension is kind of maximally scaled up because we are going into real companies that are operating, real functions that are delivering real value to customers. And our goal is to partner with them to, help improve models, but also to hopefully become like a good customer for these companies, as well as in some pipelines, which we can get into in a second, help them become actually more AI native through these pipelines. But we can get into those details in a second. But that's the high level.
Awesome. Thank you, Ollie. I think it would make a lot more sense now to kind of dive into how this program actually works. Like, if a company is interested in getting involved, what would that process look like end to end from the first call to actually getting their data over to us? Solomon, if you want to take that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So when a company is interested in partnering with us on this company data partnerships program, typically the first step is something of a exploratory call or discussion where we share a bit more about the process. We offer a intake form where they can actually outline the full high level overview of the kind of data that they would be willing to work with us on. And then from there, we take it from our side. We work on generating a proposal for them. We discuss the details of that proposal. And we also work to anonymize that data and scrub it and exchange it in a secure and transparent fashion, and really just partner very closely with their engineering team and with their employees to understand how best to negotiate the transfer. And this is one lever of this partnership. There's also a second lever, which Ollie alluded to previously, which was the workflow side of things, where if a company is interested, they can also work with us actually to not only share like an exports of their company data, but also actually develop information that could be used to train the models in the way of like prompting. So there are actually two levers to this that we can explore. But in terms of the data partnerships where they provide like a corpus of information, it starts with an intake form and then we go from there.
Awesome. Thank you. And so, if a company does want to participate and they are qualified and we decide to move forward with them, practically speaking, how much time and effort does this take from their team? And like who internally from their team needs to be involved in the process? Yeah, if you just want to go from there.
Yeah, maybe someone I'll touch on the corpus one, and then you could touch on the workflows maybe. So like Solomon was saying, there's two pipelines here. One is what we call corpus. The other is what we call workflows. So just as a reminder, corpus is when we work with the company and we, in an anonymized fashion, use existing data that they already have. So that includes their unstructured data as well as structured databases. We fully remove PII and we use that data to seed RL environments, which we will touch on what that means in a second. But the effort required from the company on this sort of corpus snapshot is quite low. It takes a few hours, I would say probably anywhere from 1 to 3 hours to create what's called a data manifest, which is essentially telling us at a high level what is the type of data that exists over the last X years that this company has been operating, and the sort of magnitude of the data as well. And then from there, once we have agreement on the price that we want to sort of partner on, we then send a forward deployed engineer on our end to help probably one or two engineers within the company to actually sort of transfer the anonymized data over to us. And I would say it probably takes another few hours, maybe at most close to 10 hours from one or two people in the company to sort of make this happen. Of course, it can range a little bit if the company is really big, but I would say that the average is around these. So total of less than 15 hours in most cases. So that's for corpus, but for workflows, Solomon, if you want to explain that.
Yes. So yeah, as Ali already mentioned, that was the corpus side of the partnership. And then there's also a second lever to a partnership. And just to emphasize, companies are not obligated to do both of these. This is just like an additional component to this. But some companies actually deploy their employees to a pipeline within Micro One and provide us real world workflows that can be used to actually train these agents on relevant information related to their work. So this is really interesting because it essentially allows for the next iteration of these frontier AI models to be trained directly from the kinds of prompting that your employees would be most interested in challenging the agents with. So the way that would work is the employees work closely with our team to develop prompts and instructions and review them and iterate on them. And then we create evaluations and generate qualitative feedback for these agents based on the workflows that are generated. And that qualitative feedback is extremely useful to these labs to understand the gap between what agents can already do and what agents are struggling to still do in real world environments like the contextual and company based environments that the employees exist in. So those are the two opportunities within company data partnerships.
Yeah, and also just a small thing to add on the workflows pipeline. Our goal is to really get companies to work with these AI tools, or in some cases, just one AI tool based on the lab that we're partnering with. Our goal is to get them to work with these tools in a way that they that it really like benefits their company operations. So as Solomon was saying, what this means is that the tasks that are done that we are interested in to sort of help models improve are tasks that the team members within these companies are already doing in their job. Like if a certain marketing person is creating some sort of campaign, and the campaign requires maybe a graphic to be created, some copy to be created, and then maybe there's some connection required to some ad network. Those things that are existing within this person's job already, we would want them to do on this sort of AI tool that we help onboard into the company. And this allows the company to essentially get paid to do tasks with AI, which is, in our view, the fastest way to actually become AI native, because as you do more tasks with AI, that's sort of the definition of becoming AI native. And we're essentially paying for companies to sort of go through that path.
Awesome. Thank you both. When we talk about real world business data and real world workflows, can you give an example of what that actually looks like and what that actually means to these companies?
Yeah, so I think it's helpful for me to maybe explain like what is an RL environment and how do kind of models use it, and then how it relates to this. So one of the one of the main things that essentially helps labs improve their models is what we call RL environments, which have three core components to them. The first is seeding data that is essentially like documents, files, perhaps Slack channels, etc., that are included in an environment. The second is tooling, which is software that an agent is going to use to actually perform some sort of task. Um, and the third is the actual task itself, which is what is the prompt, what is the thing that the agent needs to do, and then what are what's called verifiers that sort of determine how well the output of the agent was. So let's take an example here. Let's say you're creating some task to create a web application of some sort, and to do that task, you need to perhaps have a scope document that exists within, maybe a Google Doc. And then once you have the scope document, you need to add to that some constraints that maybe come from like a Slack channel or something. So perhaps you need to read a Slack channel to kind of look at some of the ways that this web application should be developed. So maybe it's not all included in the scope document. There's sort of some areas that you need to also look into. Um, and maybe there's a couple other things, but these would be the Slack channel plus the documents that you're looking at is what we call seeding data. Um, and the second thing is the tooling that's used. So if you have an agent that is going to perhaps take the scope, and maybe first the agent is going to log it onto some sort of project management tool. Maybe it's monday.com, Asana, whatever it is. And then before it actually starts the development, perhaps it does the logging, gives a status to that module, and then it starts the development. And then maybe once it finishes the development of that software, it goes back and actually logs the module as complete on monday.com, let's say. And then it sort of pings somebody in Slack to say, okay, this is done. Can you check it out? So the tooling that I just described, which is the monday.com as an example, would also be part of the RL environment. So these are kind of like three components: seeding, again, which is the files, plus Slack in this case, the tooling, and then the actual task, which is what is the prompt, what is the agent going to do, and then the verifiers, which determines the quality of the output. So these three components is what makes an RL environment, which then helps model capabilities improve. And so our goal is one of the main things that we want to do is we want to make each of these areas more realistic. And specifically, the seeding data is what we need to make really realistic. And we do so through this company data partnership, because if you have a synthetic document, like a scope document that's synthetic, it's going to be too structured, and there's not going to be enough kind of real world noise. And then if you have like a Slack thread that explains more constraints on that scope document, that Slack thread being synthetic will also not have enough real noise and won't match the distribution of the real world. And so we take anonymized company data to kind of feed a lot of these seeding environments to then make the RL environments and the ultimate verifiers and reward models that come out of them a lot more realistic. So that's sort of one example in the way, a very like specific example in the way that these are used. Of course, there's others, but yeah, I think that would be one.
Yeah, if I could just add very quickly, like to very quickly summarize that, essentially you're taking the work that you're already doing in your desk job, in your day to day, whether it be in email and spreadsheets and GCal, whatever it is, and you're challenging these agents to support you virtually within your device in those workflows and seeing how well they can do to essentially make you more efficient and make your life sometimes three, five, 10 times easier when you really get good at these tools. So companies also get better at actually tooling and in turn give us feedback to give more insights to the researchers who build these tools.
Mhm. Awesome. Thank you so much. I feel like that really paints the picture and allows people to understand exactly what they would be delivering to us to train these models. So, is there a specific type of company that is a good fit for this program? Is there specific industries or domains that you're looking for when it comes to qualifying companies? Solomon, if you want to take this one, or Ali, either one.
No, I mean, I'll give a quick brief, Solomon, you can add to this, but basically the short answer is no. We go after, we're very interested in partnering with all types of companies, and the idea here is that there is a lot of our customers are building general intelligence, and general intelligence requires lots of different types of knowledge. So, but yeah, Solomon, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I was going to say the same. Obviously, the bigger, the badder, the better, as it were. But there are no hard and fast cutoffs. We are very much interested in real world complex data to make these models richer and more powerful.
Awesome. And I think a question that a lot of people might have is about the referral program that we launched. Can you share a little bit more about this referral program, how much money we're offering for referrals who convert, and how that works?
Yeah, the referral program sounds a bit crazy. It's a lot of money per referral. Basically the summary of it is it was actually $25,000 per referral, but now it's 50,000. So we are paying $50,000 per referral that actually ends up working with us to the referee that referred that person. So if you have a friend that has a company, or you know of a company, and you submit them as a referral, and that company signs up with your referral link, and then we actually work with them, and we sign with them, and pay them for any of these, either workflows or corpus partnership, then you get 50,000. Actually, let me clarify. The workflows one is a little bit less. I have to check exactly how much, but for the corpus one, you get $50,000 as a referral fee. So yeah, we think this might be one of the biggest referral programs that has ever existed.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a really amazing opportunity. So if anyone knows any companies that might be interested, definitely refer them. It could be a huge benefit to you and them. Um, Another thing that I think is probably on a lot of people's mind is around privacy. I think this is a super important topic that we should definitely dive into. So, would you guys please be able to walk us through how privacy works, how PII gets removed, who decides, who ensures that it's all taken care of? Yeah, pass it around to either one of you, whoever wants to pick it up.
Yeah,
Sure.
I could start on this if helpful, Ollie. Yeah. So there are a number of ways that we ensure security here. I could touch on four big ones. I think the first one that we really want to emphasize is the secure transfer of the data. So there's a mutually agreed method upon which this data gets transferred. It could be either like a cloud storage method or encrypted file transfer. Very high transparency how we negotiate the most efficient and secure way to transfer this information. Another really important one is PII transformation or removal. So, of course, this data will naturally have information that you do not actually want to be delivered at the endpoint when it gets handed to our clients. So, we have two ways to go about this. The first is proprietary tooling, so like automated AI based removal or transformation of that data. But in conjunction, there are humans in the loop, trained reviewers who also go through and in a siloed fashion ensure that all information is scrubbed and there are no stones left unturned. So we have a whole pipeline that we're building out to really flesh this out and make it even more robust, more than it currently is. And then the other 2 points that I want to really touch on are retention. So this data does not get held in perpetuity. There's like a 60-day period by default that is defined, after which case the data gets completely removed on our side. And of course, this can be customized based on the company needs. So that's always a possibility to negotiate. And then the last thing I think is, which is the most important in my opinion, or one of the most, is that you get to actually review the data before it even gets passed to the client at the very end. So we give you a representative sample of what the end of the whole negotiation looks like, and you get to, for yourself, verify that you're okay with it before it gets passed on to our labs.
Yeah, I have no other points to add. Solomon covered all of them. I think the only other thing I'll just summarize is, we are very much in the business of data. I mean, obviously, and we care a lot about data confidentiality and privacy at every corner of our company. And this is sort of this sort of comes in like three different pillars and modalities of data, which are all very sensitive. Of course, the first is we have lots of data with candidates that go through our platform, so we care a lot about that. We have a lot of data that experts create for the labs. We care deeply about those data points, and then now, of course, the company data partnerships. We have corpus of data that is retained at least for some amount of time in our databases. So we take security as a really, really core pillar at Micro One. And of course, Solomon explained how and what those pillars are.
Amazing. Thank you both so much. I think that's going to ease a lot of questions that people have about the program and make them feel more comfortable moving forward if they are interested. I think now is a good time to spend the next few minutes going over audience Q&A. I see a lot of people have dropped questions in the chat, so we're going to do our best to get through a few of them. But as always, if you do have more questions, I will send all of the resources over after this with the links to the referral program, the links to get involved and apply. You can also DM me on LinkedIn as well.
Solomon, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I want to say that we are broadly interested in all kinds of real world data, although we do bias towards English based data pretty strongly. And naturally, that implies a slight bias also towards US companies. But I would say if you have a company that you think could be interested in providing data, just pass them through and we can go from there. But yeah, slight bias towards English based information, at least for now.
Yeah, and this usually what happens is we sort of improve models on English, and then we improve models on different languages afterwards. So this will probably change. The distribution will probably change and become more I guess normalized and neutral over time. But yeah, for now it's a bias towards English.
Awesome. Another great question that came into the chat was, is this a one-time collaboration where companies provide the requested data, receive the payment, and then the partnership ends? Or is there a possibility for ongoing cooperation in the future? I know we have these two different models, corpus and workflow, so maybe you can dive into how a company can get involved and then continue to make this a reoccurring revenue stream.
Yeah, so our goal is we know that companies want recurring revenue streams, just like we do. And so our goal is to try to provide a recurring revenue stream as much as possible. Of course, it's not possible in every case, but our goal is to make it as recurring as we can. So just quickly touching on each pipeline. For Corpus, it is a little bit more of a one-time kind of big purchase that could be in the millions for sort of a snapshot of anonymized data. And then um, one way to make this sort of recurring is there's options for corpus refreshes. So, after X number of months, maybe after a couple of quarters, as a company continues to progress and operate, we can sort of get another snapshot, which can then be some percentage of the initial purchase, which becomes recurring in some way. So that's one example, and we're thinking about ways to make that even more recurring. And then the workflows one is very recurring. And that one is you can sort of keep actually expanding the amount of revenue that comes in from that. And the way that works is there's essentially some amount that you get per task that your team members submit. Again, doing realistic tasks on any of these tools. And the per task, the number of tasks that you submit on a weekly basis, they can sort of trend upwards based on the number that each team member does, but also based on the number of team members that you onboard. So usually what we see is companies, they start with a few team members, they sort of test it out, they submit maybe a couple tasks per team member each week, and then they up it in terms of larger portion of the team. And now we have some companies that almost the entire team is actually contributing in some way, and those can actually become very significant recurring revenue streams. I would say in the millions and probably in some cases, rare cases, 10 million plus in terms of like recurring run rates. Of course, the recurring is not like there's no commitment in terms of how long it's going to last and all those things, but it is recurring in nature. Solomon, would you add anything to that?
No, I think that covers it. Yeah, Corpus, I think there's potential to, as you said, like reinvigorate the data as you get more data, and then workflows is very ongoing. Week to week, we're doing a lot of evaluations with the tasks that people create. So I think you covered it all.
Awesome. And I think we have time for one last question and then we can wrap it up since we're coming up on time. Is how many companies are we looking to accept into this program? We have a small cohort for a deadline in 2 weeks, but is there going to be an ongoing need for this? What is that timeline, and what does that timeline look like?
Yeah, we want to work with a lot of companies. I think we've said for the next couple of weeks, I believe the number is 50 or something along those lines. But the reality is we want to work with hundreds of companies and probably soon thousands of companies. So yeah, we're interested to partner with a lot. That's the summary.
Like you said,
Awesome. Perfect. I think that's a great note to end on. If you are interested in getting involved in this program, you can find more information at micro1.ai/data. I will also send all of these links and all the information that we refer to in this seminar over email. And of course, don't hesitate to reach out to all three of us. If you're interested in getting involved, my email is just sydney@micro1.ai. Yeah, please feel free to reach out. And thank you so much for coming today and joining us for this session. Hopefully we have more in the future to continue answering all of the questions that came in the chat. So thanks again, everyone, and have a great one.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
thank you.